This VIP access badge is now my favorite first player token of any game ever. It is iconic. And it fits so well with the theme. Everything about this I love. Hello everybody, welcome back to Board Game Buzz. Today my name is Carly and today we're going to be showing my first thoughts and impressions on a brand new upcoming title from Mariposa Games. This is called Garage Rock. In this game, you are taking on the role of a band, and you're starting off just kind of playing in your garage on very subpar instruments. But of course, you have dreams of becoming legendary rock stars. Now, this is a first impressions video, not a preview. So I'm just going to be basically sharing my first impressions, what I liked and didn't like about this game after playing it for the very first time. However, having said that, I am actually scheduled to do a preview. I don't typically do that with games, but Mariposa Games, when they reached out, they specifically wanted a first thoughts video and a preview. So I just wanted to disclose that, just let you know fully aware that I am set to have paid content that is scheduled for this game. I have not yet filmed it. This is the very first video I'm filming for this game. However, just because I am doing preview content for this game, it's not going to change my opinions and what I am going to say in this video. Hopefully you've seen enough of my videos that you trust me on that. So because this is a first impressions video and not a preview, at least not yet, I'm just going to be giving you a really general overview of how the game operates before diving into what I liked and didn't like about this game. Very briefly though, if this is the first video you've ever watched of mine, welcome to Board Game Buzz. We're so happy to have you here. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, doing all the good stuff to support me and the channel, I would really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into my first impressions of Garage Rock. Full disclosure, I have been on like a musical games kick for probably the last year, maybe year and a half. I don't know why, I've just really been gravitating towards that theme of, you know, up and coming rock star or trying to make it big in the music industry. That theme just really resonates with me for whatever reason, even though I'm not musically inclined at all. And I used to be even more into music than I am now. So I don't really know why I resonate with that theme so much, but for whatever reason, it's just been hitting lately. And so when Mariposa Games reached out, all I really needed to know, I didn't even see any pictures of the game. They said, okay, so essentially what this game is you are, you're a band that's kind of trying to become the most popular like rock star band. And that was all I needed. Yep, go ahead, send me over a copy because I'm interested. So speaking about the theming, let's go ahead and kind of dive into what exactly is happening here. I will make sure to throw up some B-roll because this game is really big. Like I actually don't have my overhead camera mounted and recording right now because it is such a big game and takes up so much space. So I'm just going to throw in B-roll so hopefully you can kind of get an idea of what's happening. In the center of the board, there is this massive treehouse, which I do think that lots of the components that I have are going to be part of the upgraded crowdfunding game, kind of the more deluxe exclusive edition of the game, because I don't think this awesome treehouse comes with the base, but this is so cool. And it doubles as a dice tower, which I'll talk about in a second. But essentially there is this character named Johnny Law, and he is up in this treehouse, and he is the one that is blasting all of his music over the radio waves and basically bringing music to this neighborhood. One of the primary mechanisms in this game is worker placement. You will have your own personal little player board that has your band members, and every single band member is associated with a meeple. And on your turn, you will place out your meeple into various neighborhoods in order to visit the shops or locations in that particular neighborhood to then get those bonuses. Some of those shops might give you instrument upgrades. You might be able to upgrade your drums so you slowly become better. You might get better clothing so you actually are kind of building up the look of your band, right? There's one location in particular, I believe it's the garage. It's where you actually are able to go and you write songs. So that's how you are actually able to write the songs that you will then be able to perform at the various gigs. So essentially everywhere you're going on this board is beefing up your band in some way, whether you're writing songs or maybe you're actually recording those songs. So you can actually flip, when you write a song, it just stays on its kind of like like unfinished side, but when you record it, it actually flips over and it actually becomes a record. If you are ever visiting a location where Johnny Law is at and you actually have previously recorded one of your songs, you can actually hand the tape over to him and he helps kind of promote your music. Promoting your music is essentially advancing along the popularity tracks that are associated with every single neighborhood. So there is a green neighborhood, a blue neighborhood, a yellow neighborhood, and then a red neighborhood. As you slowly move up those tracks, you will be able to unlock more things, whether it's getting more money or getting more fans. In regards to your team, you have four people a part of your band, essentially 4 workers, right? So there's going to eventually come a point where you can't make any legal placements. Either you run out of your band members, they're all on the board, or you won't be able to visit a spot because you can't actually pay for an action. So whenever that point hits in a game, when you can't actually make an action, that's when you have to recall. And recalling is interesting. It's not a typical recall action. It's actually called, It's performing a gig? Playing a gig. Sorry, it's playing a gig. So when that happens, you will recall all of your workers that you placed out on the board, or your band members, right? Even if you have some left over on your personal player board, you would recall those too, and you would visit one of the 4 gigs that are out on the board here. When you visit a gig, you can choose to either be the opening act or the headlining act, and based on the songs that you had previously written and practiced and were ready to perform, you can successfully play at those gigs and gain quite a bit of bonuses by doing so. When you do play at gigs, that's what actually advances the calendar marker. If you're playing a 1 to 3 player game, the game takes place over 12 weeks. If you're playing a 4-player game, it takes place over 16 weeks. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean rounds, it just means whenever gigs occur, then so essentially it's going to be 16. When 16 gigs happen or 12 gigs happen, that's what's going to trigger the end of the game. When that triggers, essentially everybody's going to get one more turn, and then the final battle of the bands happens. Now I'm going to be chatting about the battle of the bands a little bit later in this video, so I'm just going to leave that overview for right now, and we'll circle back around in regards to the battle of the bands. But hopefully that kind of gives you a general idea of what you're doing. Again, placing your band members, activating certain areas, and continuing to do that until eventually you need to recall. And when you recall, that's when you will perform at the gigs. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea, kind of a baseline area of how this game operates. But let's go ahead and kind of jump into my thoughts on this game. Very first thing I want to mention is I was a little bit overwhelmed in regards to this board, just face value. When I first opened up the game and started setting it up, the very first thing I thought was, wow, there are way more components in this game than I originally thought. I don't think it goes overboard with the components. Like, everything actually does have a place and a purpose. I just hope that with the final game, there's some sort of storage system that makes the setup and tear down for this game easier, because I remember feeling overwhelmed because essentially on every single one of these locations, except for one, you have to stack quite a bit of items. And especially if you're playing a 4-player game, well, that's quite a bit of stuff that you are going and having to stack on every single one of these locations. So I really hope that the final game comes with a really easy storage system that you can just place actually on the locations, take the lids off, and boom, it's all set up and ready to go. Because I was very overwhelmed when I first started unboxing this game. Not gonna lie. And I don't really want to jump into this next point because this is going to seem like it's a negative review. It's not a negative review. But another thing I want to touch on in regards to first impressions when I was first setting up this game, I was first overwhelmed in regards to the look of this main board. Again, I'm going to throw up B-roll so you can kind of see what I mean. When I first was setting it up, I felt like I couldn't quite read it. I actually really like the artwork in this game. But it was slightly, I wish that the neighborhoods and the areas and the zones in this board were more distinct and easier to tell apart. I guess I just wish that the coloring on the buildings were more distinct. Not saying that they aren't distinct, but for example, in this yellow zone, this just rad, well, I mean, I know this is the yellow zone, but there also is quite a bit of orange on this building, which over here at the academy lessons, there's quite a bit of orange on the academy lessons as well. So for aesthetic reasons, it probably looks better to have different shades of different colorings on the buildings. And I guess just from a mechanic standpoint, I wish that it was very, very clear. Hey, this is the yellow zone, so all the buildings are going to be very yellow. This is the blue zone, everything's going to be very blue. Just to make it seem a little bit easier, because there are times where, which we haven't quite talked about this, but this tree isn't just a tree for aesthetic reasons. It actually doubles as a dice tower, because there are times where you will be dropping cubes into this building, and based on where they fall out, they will activate different zones. And there was one time I actually had a dice fall out that was kind of in between this yellow neighborhood and this blue neighborhood, and I wasn't quite sure where it landed. So I wish that there was just like more distinction between the neighborhoods. And then especially in this green area, the only location you can go to at the green area is the garage, where you are writing songs and practicing songs, right? But it actually looks like it's a part of the blue zone, because the roof on the house is all blue. So when I first was kind of trying to learn this game, it took me a minute to be, oh, this is the green area. This is where we're going. So I wish that like the rooftop on that building was green to signify that it's the green area, right? So coming back into my first impressions, that's what I first was thinking when I was setting up this game, was there's more components than I was expecting, and this board is going to be hard to read. However, having said that, once I kind of got past that and I fully set up the game, we sat down, we started playing, I actually really kind of fell in love with the artwork of this game and even the look on this main board. Again, I still have a few issues in regards to, I do wish that they would have made the artwork more distinct in regards to the different neighborhoods, but I really love the feeling and the vibe of this main board. I don't even know how to describe how I like it so much, but something about it I truly do love. I love the look of it. It almost kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you ever played Sims, like the video game Sims, like when you're kind of just backed up from the neighborhood and you see all the houses, the artwork style, it almost kind of feels like that a little bit to me. It toes that line really good of you kind of feel like you're kids, but it doesn't feel like a kid's game. Feel like you are kind of in your junior high, high school, maybe not quite high school, maybe it is junior high, band years, and you're going around and it just kind of feels like gritty. And I really ended up just falling in love with the look of this main board. I actually always loved the look of the player boards. The player boards are fantastic, the double layer, and something that I really fell in love with was the way that you are slowly upgrading your band and the way that operates and works. And not only the way you upgrade, but how you upgrade specifically with the characters that you're using. So for example, if I come here, if I want to go to this shred shack, if I want to go to the shred shack and I want to upgrade my drums, if I want to get a better pair of drums, then I actually need to come here with my drummer so that I can upgrade my drums. If I come here with my lead singer, then I'll get a new microphone, but I don't want a new microphone, I want a new set of drums. So based on where you are going with your particular characters, then you will upgrade them in that way. If I come here to Just Rad and I want to get a new clothing, then I actually will take my drummer and flip their token onto the other side, actually changing their outfit. And then by so doing, I will increase on my my style track, which is tracked by knobs on the side of your board that you're slowly increasing and basically cranking up the volume. That's what it kind of feels like. But then on top of that, as the game goes on, you actually have times where you can, and once stuff triggers, that you can actually unlock certain abilities on those particular people as well. So they start off, it has just a really good build up because they start off very basic, and then you're slowly, giving them new outfits, giving them better equipment, which at least I believe this is the upgraded version, but all the equipment and everything that you actually put on top of your characters are all acrylic. So I love just the look of it. Looks really cool. And then eventually you get to the point where you actually give them specific abilities that they can do when you use that particular character at a certain location. So you really do feel like you're building up your band. You feel like you are getting better, and it's so fun to see the build up on your personal player board, to see kind of where you start, and then to slowly, you feel like you're becoming like a rock star band. And I just found that so much. It was so fun. I love how this game implemented something in regards to a recall action, right? Which I really think we're probably going to be seeing more of that in games, where your recall action isn't just like a boring, okay, I'm going to recall. But in this game, that recall action is very important, because that is actually where you're going to be playing these gigs and getting more money, right? You're going to be earning those fans. And then I love thematically how you had the choice at almost all the locations to either be the headliner or the opener. And both could kind of give you different things, right? You might actually want to be an opener one time. When you are setting up this game in regards to the gigs, you actually will randomly kind of put together the gigs deck, so you're not actually playing with all of them at the same time. And I love that from like a thematic standpoint. So every time you are going in and playing this game again, you are kind of playing at different areas, or they're not always going to be the same 5 zones or 5 gigs that are in play every time. You're going to randomly kind of create the gig deck, so it will kind of be different every single time you play, which I love that. In regards to complexity level, this was actually a much more crunchy game than I was seeing. And especially from the cover, like you said, when you first kind of see this, you might think, oh, maybe that's kind of, I don't know. I was expecting it to be a fair amount or decent amount lighter than it actually was. This is a very crunchy game. I think if you like more simple games, I think this is going to kind of teeter right on the edge of being too complex, because there's lots of things you have to think about. There's a set structure that you kind of have to follow in order to be successful, right? You're going to have to come to the garage, you're going to have to write the song, then you're going to have to practice the song before you can perform the songs. You're going to have to, again, write the song before you can record the song and actually have the album, which you can then give to Johnny, which then allows your music to be played on the radio. For me, this isn't a game that I would just like casually play. Like, I don't think I could, like, this is one that, like, it's kind of heads down. I'm kind of planning out my move a couple turns in advance, kind of trying to figure out where I need to go. So it does actually have a decent amount of crunchiness to it, and lots of things you're kind of trying to balance at the same time. If you're a very casual gamer, I think this is probably going to be a drop too much going on. Like, I don't think Jordan would like this game. I think he would think it's too complicated, or there's too much going on. I really liked it. For me, there was a handful of stuff that I wish would have been either cut out or streamlined just a bit more. And again, this is just my first impressions in regards to my first time playing. I'm sure if I were to play this game again, it would come, there would be a lot of things that I'd be able to remember. Okay, but there was definitely a lot of times where I kept going back to the rule book, because I kept forgetting, okay, how do we trigger this? How do we do this? What are the steps in order to go through this? For the most part, it's a very simple game, but it does have a decent amount of times where I was having to go back to the rule book to remember, what does this knob mean? What is this? How do I activate this again? For me, I think there was just a drop, maybe too much going on, not necessarily in a bad way. I actually really liked the complexity and everything that was happening, but I wish there were just a handful of stuff that would have been more streamlined. So for me as a player, after playing a couple rounds, like for me, I wasn't able to play a couple rounds and then, okay, I put the rulebook aside, I know what I'm doing, let's now play. Basically, the entire game, I was kind of in and out of the rulebook, trying to remember small little hedge case stuff. So I mentioned this at the beginning, how the game ends with the Battle of the Bands. So we're going to kind of chat about how that operates now. Essentially, after the game is done, then the Battle of the Games is, or Battle of the Bands, Battle of the Games, Battle of the Bands is going to happen. That is essentially where this secondary board is going to come into play. Whoever has the least amount of fans is going to basically perform first. And what's going to happen is that you will take all of your band members and place them on their associated tracks. If you do happen to have any members of your band that have reached rock star status, they will actually start higher up than the rest of your band members. Throughout the game, something that you will be slowly acquiring are these like performance cubes. And essentially, for the Battle of the Band, you will take all those performance cubes. There's some more stuff that you might calculate, but you essentially drop them into this treehouse, and they will go on they will fall out onto certain zones or neighborhoods. And then based on where they end up, you will actually slowly advance your band members up on this track. Wherever they end up, it will calculate and give you additional fans, basically additional points at the end of the game. And everybody will go around and do that. When I first read that, I hated it. I hated it. Felt like a really awful ending. I really didn't like the luck factor, right? It felt weird to have a game that was super, super strategic end on such a lucky thing, right? However, having said that, some people might like that. Some people might think it's fun. For me, I didn't like it, but that's okay that I didn't like it because you actually don't have to play with this particular Battle of the Bands mode as an ending. There's actually an alternate game scoring, which I'm actually just going to read from the rulebook because I think it explains it the best. What's going to happen is you when you first do a Battle of the Bands, okay, when you first are doing it, there are some certain stuff that Johnny Law is going to score up at the top. So if you are playing the alternate way, then you will essentially just go through and score up all of the, think of it as like end game scoring, right, that Johnny Law is going to score up for you. So each band will earn 1 additional performance cube per each condition that is met. And the conditions are have at least $10 left over, have 1 band skill fader at level 4, have all 6 songs written, have at least 3 songs in your set list, have 4 motivation left over, and have at least 1 demo tape slotted on your player garage board. So players will add up the total value shown on their performance cube knob and gain 1 fan per performance cube. Next, each player will gain 2 fans for every rock star on their band, and then the player with the most fans wins. So that's kind of like an alternate way to play for me. That's the only way that I would do the final Battle of the Bands, just so it doesn't feel so lucky and random and to end just on a random. I don't know. You might think that's fun. For me, I found it frustrating. So I would definitely play the alternate ending. I will also say that if you are playing a 1 to 2 player game of this, you will have to use a dummy player. I always make sure to say that because I know some people don't like having to do upkeep of simulate a third player. For me, I think it actually worked. It was a very easy one to go through and operate. Essentially, you just flip over a card and place. So it didn't take a lot of extra manpower, a lot of extra steps to use that third player, but just kind of be aware that if you do primarily play games at 2 players or even solo, you will have to basically simulate a bot. Another thing that I found really interesting is there are times where you can actually use your bike to visit certain areas. And when you do use your bike, you actually can visit both of the stores at that neighborhood instead of just visiting one. So I liked that addition. I liked how you had an additional thing that you can do just to make the most of your turn. All right, so kind of writing up my final thoughts here is this game, actually, it surprised me how much I enjoyed this game. I really loved the complexity level. I loved kind of the puzzle of what you were doing. I thought it was so interesting, that build-up, and you physically see that build-up on your personal player board. Like I said, I think the only thing is I wish there were been a little bit more things that were slightly more streamlined, just so it made it a little bit more intuitive to play. As I said, even if I were to dive, after playing this game one time, even if I were to dive back in, I feel like I would still have to have the rulebook handy going through. I think this game would actually take me quite a bit of plays before I felt comfortable to not use the rulebook. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. But I absolutely love the theme. I love the production. I think they did a really great job with this game, and I really enjoyed my plays, and I'm excited to jump into this one again. All right, so hopefully that kind of gives you a general idea of my first thoughts and impressions after playing Garage Rock for the first time. I wanted to again give a special shout out to Mariposa Games for sending us this early copy of the game to share with you. Again, I will actually be doing an official preview of this video later on in the month, so kind of keep your eye out for that. But hopefully this kind of gives you an idea if this game would be a good fit for you and your collection or not. Again, I will actually have all the information of this upcoming game in the description below for this video, so make sure you check that out as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you enjoyed this video and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, it means so much if you could do that. Really helps support me in everything that we're doing over here. But until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later.